Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Masisizane Fund SME Funding Readiness Masterclass. Thank you for taking the time to come join us today as our keynote speaker shares some key insights on how to get your business funding ready. I am your host, Masisizane Madolo, and I will be leading the session for today. But before we can start, I just want to quickly go through a couple of housekeeping rules or online housekeeping rules just to set us on the right path today. So firstly, the chat box is your platform to share your comments, to share your questions. Please use it throughout the session. However, we will have a question and answer session towards the end of today. And lastly, this session is an hour and a half long. So please sit tight and make sure you do stay on for the period of today. So we have advertised or we have shared on all our social medias about this masterclass. So if you want to continue this conversation online on our various social media platforms, please make use of our hashtag, which is Masisizane Masterclass, one word. So now, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our first speaker. He is the captain of the Masisizane ship. He is an advocate for the SME development, and he is my CEO. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Ndumisa Zulu. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsidi. Good morning, everyone. As Tsidi mentioned, my name is Ndumisa Zulu, and I am the CEO of the Masisizane Fund within of Little. It really gives me a pleasure to welcome all of you to today's SME Readiness, SME Funding Readiness Masterclass, which is the first in a series of such conversations that we will be hosting on all things related to SME funding. It is a topic we are particularly passionate about. So why do people apply for funding and not get it? It's a question that I get probably more often than any other question. And to make matters worse, the majority of people that apply for funding actually end up not getting it for a variety of reasons. In fact, in my pre-old mutual life, I used to work for a DFI, and we did a study that tracks applications over time, from application stage all the way up to the decision, whether that's acceptance or funding granted or rejection. And we found that 70% of funding applications don't actually get funded. And we are here today to zoom in on just one of those reasons for why people who apply for funding don't get it. And that one reason is funding readiness. So today we are really here to unpack what funding readiness is. And hopefully as part of these discussions and the engagements, we will also be able to give you some tips on how to actually make sure that the 3 in 10 that eventually succeeds in getting funding actually becomes the 7 or even the 10 out of 10. That really is the aim and the objective of today's session. So today I'm going to try and do something that Masisizane doesn't think I'm capable of, which is speaking very little. And just once again, welcome you to this masterclass. I hope you will enjoy it. And yeah, let's hope it's going to be a very fruitful and useful session for everybody, because it is quite important to us that people who need funding most understand exactly what is it that would prevent them from getting funding before they apply, because then they can actually take steps to sidestep or avoid that pothole before they drive into it, as it were. So without further ado, I would like to head back to Masisizane for the rest of the program, but for us at Masisizane, it really is a delight to have you here today. Thank you, Tsidi.
Thank you, Dumiso. Thank you for keeping it short and sweet. Today we're not here for you, Mr. CEO, but we are here for our keynote speaker. So I would like to introduce the keynote speaker today, just to quickly go through his bio, just to give you a snippet of his background. He is the founder of Hatchify. It is a business advisory and project management studio that specializes in venture capital investment analysis and enterprise and supply development. He's a seasoned enterprise and supply development and project management professional with over 12 years experience working in and with small to large enterprises to achieve commercial and socio-economic transformation across value chains in Africa. So he's held various roles in companies like Accenture, SAB, and Absa Bank. He's a Fulbright Humphrey Fellow from Michigan State University and an alumni of Stellenbosch University. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Octavius Phukubye, OP in short.
Okay, fantastic. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Sidi, for that introduction, and everybody else for giving me the opportunity to come and run the masterclass and not entirely give a keynote address. So it's hopefully going to be something after which, I'm expecting all of us as entrepreneurs to have key takeaways to really go and work and improve on our businesses. So I'm super excited to be here. And when I put this together, when I got the instruction to, prepare this masterclass, it was, there's entrepreneurs that are obviously, very early in their journey, in their building of businesses. They're starting to interact with a lot of investors looking for funding. And then there are those that are currently in operations, have been existing. They have to engage regularly with investors to finance their growth, to finance some of the gaps that they may have in their businesses to really, continue doing what they do. So the intention of today's session really is to provide, the different sort of funding options that are available in the market. We've had the CEO talk about the reasons why people get rejected, the element of readiness. And what we find is that people just also tend to confuse the different types of funding instruments that are available. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about, we'll deep dive a bit about some of the things that are looked at when people are applying for funding, which, does the business look like it's something that can be in existence for the next 3 years? Is it a viable business? Do they have the right fundamentals in place to continue generating cash, generating revenue, etc. Right? And then we'll share some anecdotes of examples of some SMEs that have successfully raised funding. And then, of course, hopefully with the conversations happening right now via Q&A sessions happening online as well, I think LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, hopefully we can connect as entrepreneurs and build that ecosystem of support amongst each other. But I think for me, what I'm really excited about is with the resources and the insights we're going to share today, they'll hopefully get you a notch higher in your of securing funding, your chances of securing funding. So those are really the intentions of what we're trying to achieve today. And yeah, I've been given about almost an hour. We'll hopefully break at midpoint to get some questions and try and make it as more interactive as possible, but also more individualized as possible, so that you can take something away yourself as an entrepreneur that is running your own business. It could be anywhere else on the continent or in the country, as it were. Some of the reasons, Ndu speaks about is people say, people apply for funding and the rejections is because people are generally not ready. But when you zoom into it, is that you find that the business plan is not making sense, right? It's a poorly defined, poorly written. You don't know what is the story, and then you find that both the teams or the entrepreneurs or the founders of those businesses, because they have had lives before, their credit record is not as good as it is, and there are no efforts to try and address those issues. What we also find is the financial records are are in poor state. And I mean, hopefully, one of the things I usually joke about is after we run a masterclass like this, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, a lot of founders go back and actually fire their accountants. That's what we found as the consequence of running this masterclass. Entrepreneurs leave this masterclass realizing that actually, I think we're not getting value from our bookkeeper. We're not getting value from our accountants, because if this is the quality of the records that they are able to provide us, and it's the reasons why we are constantly being rejected, then there's something that we need to change, right? And that's my intention as well. Somebody as someone who's also running their business, you have to pay attention to the quality of your financial records, so your management accounts and your annual financial statements. Very, very, very important that you get those things done. It's a behavior issue that we don't find when people apply for funding. And then what we also look at is aligned to the business plan. You look at some products and some services, and there's just no viability there. There's just no market validation. There's not a big enough market for that business to grow. They don't have any offtakes. They aren't doing any tangible sort of work to really grow their pie or grow their customer base, and that's what we find that those are the key reasons why people get rejected when they apply for funding. And one of the other ones, it's somebody will apply for funding and they realize that actually this is, they're asking for 5 million or they're asking for 500,000. But when you look at the different funding mandates and options and conditions, you find there's a mismatch. So there's a lack of understanding. Somebody would be applying, looking for funding, thinking it's going to be a grant, and no, it's not a grant. It's going to be a loan, and these are the conditions of this funding. And then they get, and then there's that mismatch, right? And I wanted to highlight those that the concept of readiness it speaks largely to those key 5 areas, and then there's others, of course, that I've shared here for you guys, that some of them are also external factors that you don't have necessarily full control over, but the ones that you really do have a full control of is some of the things that speaks to how you're running your business. Is it viable? How you're managing it? How you're able to keep your records? And that's very, very, very important. Some of the other things that I want to also emphasize is that there's also a direct correlation between how you manage your cash, right? How you manage your cash and how you are able to get more funding outside. So that also gets it affects your ability to exist or continue to operate as a business. So those are the things that are really looked at when we are at high level talking about funding readiness. Don't worry about what does then funding readiness mean? If you guys are saying, a lot of investors are rejecting us based off of these reasons, how we're managing our cash flow, this is why we are also not viable, because we do not have enough runway, so the money I have today in the bank, is it enough money to keep this business alive for the next 5 years? But you find that you're applying for a loan that is going to require you to repay over a 3 year. But when I look at the businesses, the business operations and the business fundamentals, this business is not going to be around in the next 18 months. So you look at those mismatches, and then you realize there's a lot more complication. There are a lot more complicated considerations for that, and therefore the applications or the request and the propositions for funding then get rejected. So those are the things that I wanted to just start with, so that you can kind of get a sense of this is the problem that we are really trying to address with this masterclass. So let's then get into what does it mean. I think if there's anything that I'd like you to take away from today's session, is that investment readiness or funding readiness, it's really a process. I need us to understand that it's not something you're going to get done in a matter of a day or in a matter of hours. It's going to require a level of preparedness from your side, building enough capacity for you, because when you understand and you are able to secure this type of funding, there's also still some expectation for you to meet in dealing with those investors afterwards. So it's an entire process. So it's not something that happens once off and then that's it. So the level of readiness that you have is how prepared are you to provide the things that are being required, how much capacity you have, right, to meet the demands that come with the different conditions of different funding instruments. And again, we'll explain what the different funding instruments, different funding, options are there that come with different conditions, right? Now, you find that people don't understand the different elements here. You're thinking of a grant, you're thinking of debt, you're thinking of, your equity investment. So when you are equipped with such information, your level of preparedness improves, and then it allows you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to make informed decisions, so that you don't waste time. Also, it's time consuming to apply for funding, to engage with the investors or lenders or financiers, because then there's a back and forth submission of documentations, going to present, going to argue, your case. They do a due diligence, all sorts of other things. So the level of your preparedness is really what is going to inform your ability to ultimately secure that funding. So because it's a journey and because it's a process and it's not an event, you have to constantly assess a number of aspects in your business so that you can improve them, so that you can adjust certain things to make you very attractive. And I mean, the assumption is that 99.9% of the people that are here are looking for investment, are looking for funding. So with that assumption is that, how attractive are you as an investment? Because you are literally coming to somebody and saying, give me your money in exchange for X, Y, and Z. Take the risk on our company and our business with what we are trying to do. We'll give you a return. We'll give you the interest that you are charging us on the loan. We'll give you the impact that you are looking for. We'll give you a share of our business that you are asking for. So if we are able to demonstrate that value proposition, that we've got a market that wants our product, wants our service, when we sit in front of investors, and are able to describe and articulate our business, how we operate, how we provide our services, how we partner with different aspects of our ecosystem, and that translates into our finances growing. So investors are all investors, whether they are giving you a loan, they're giving you a grant, they're giving you an equity, they're all looking for businesses that are growing. Now, when you're assessing the different aspects of your business, then you're going to have to ultimately get to a point where you say, well, do I have enough resources? Am I structured in a way that allows me to grow? Do I have the right equipment? Do I have the right employees? Do I have the right suppliers? Do I have the right raw materials? Am I getting the right raw materials of quality with the right price? I'm in agriculture, I'm working with Rizwan, are they giving me on accounts? So all those kind of things affect how attractive you are as a business. And because it's a journey, because it's a process, you've got to constantly be looking at these things. When your accountants are giving you financial records, they're giving you management accounts, you're filing your taxes, you're doing your compliances, all these things are things that you work on and improve your capacity to be able for the day you sit in front of Masisizane fund and they're asking for the 10 things and you're able to say, no, this one is in place, this one is in place, that one is in place. So are you able to ensure that your business it's a desirable business? It's got the right components that makes it so desirable. It's like you're courting somebody, whether you're courting a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Your businesses, I'm looking at it as an investor, as a financier. Is there something that is so attractive about it? Is this going to be in business for the next coming years? Is it a viable business? I don't want to invest in a company where after 6 months or so, they are still struggling. They are about to shut down because there's no market, there's no customer that is buying from them. Employees continue to steal. Employees are not disciplined. Employees do not have the right technical skills. Where we are operating, we don't have the right machinery, so we can't operate far better. We are not managing our risks. If we are in agriculture, we're in primary agriculture, we're not managing our risks that come with, we're not insuring these things. If I ask you, have you guys insured X, Y, and Z? Because these are your key assets. You've not insured them. So is it a viable thing? Is it feasible that this company can continue to generate enough value? in revenue, in maintaining the costs and getting the margins in place, whether by volume or whether by by the output that the business has, right? So you've got to think about it in that way in order for you to say, is my readiness level improving or reducing or staying stagnant? And these are the things that investors are looking at. It has been proven. The more ready you are as a company, the likelihood you are to receive funding and grow and succeed. It's proven. It's proven formula, because you know why? The process of you improving your readiness benefits you more than even the investor, because all that is being asked is whether the business that you are running, is it going to be in existence to your own benefit? Why would you start a business that you don't want it to be in existence for the next 10 years, for the next 5 years? Why would you even be bothering about it? So quite frankly, this process of readiness, it firstly benefits you as the investor, as the entrepreneur, the founder, the person that has taken the biggest risk. It benefits you. You are likely to grow from it, because then you are able to identify the gaps, the areas of improvement, and then you are fixing them. It benefits you. The fact that you must be compliant doesn't entirely benefit the investor only. It primarily benefits you, because then your business can shut down tomorrow. So what are the fundamentals of this readiness? There's two things. There are things that I call table stakes. These elements here. In 2023, I'm not trying to make business owners and founders and entrepreneurs feel guilty, but I'm hoping, with almost 13 years of working in the space, that if you've been in operations, if you are thinking about it, these are the things that earn you a stake at the table. They don't earn you a meal. They don't earn you the funding. They get you through the door. So I need you in 2023 to make sure these things, you are not found wanting on them. So those are the table stakes. You as an entrepreneur, do you have the character that allows people to work with you? There are people who can't take rejection, who can't take feedback. You can't work with it. Their emotional intelligence is so low that if you're going to give them money today, tomorrow they're not even answering your calls. They're not even responding. They're not updating you with what is happening. You can't work with such people. You can't. Your ability to maintain records and be compliant with SARS, making sure that you, in specific industries that you are in, you've got those compliance. It's a no-brainer. Those are the basics that you must have in place, that you must ensure. Last week was the pay-as-you-earn day. I think it was a Wednesday. So if you are a company that has got employees, I would expect that these are the fundamentals that you're doing. By the 7th of every month, you have paid your pay-as-you-earn, you filed your records, and that is done. There are no questions about it. It gets more complicated when the cost of these things are higher, which come to the bold move. So around records, so some people in agricultural, gap compliance is a bit expensive. It's not something that you're going to get. Just to do the audit is like 25,000, right? But your awareness and level of knowledge of that is important in my books, and how you are solutioning for it is key. In terms of how you are able to define the market of what you're providing, products or services, how you are able to attract customers, retain customers, and then lastly, how you use the money, whether the money that you generate yourself from customers that are existing, or money that you put yourself in the business, or money that you want to get from other people, how efficient you are, how frugal you are. Those are the things that earn you a place at the table. And these are the things that once you've proven and are able to demonstrate, then you can unleash other things, which I refer to as your bold moves. And these bold moves are really about you demonstrating the extra mile. As the entrepreneur, as the business owner, you understand that you can't move this business alone. You need other people. You need other people with better skills, with better knowledge, with better competency to really push the business. So how are you able to build that reliable team that can move and operate the business? If you are able to show that, it's a plus. If you're able to show that you are building a layer of a management team over and above you, Meaning if you, touch wood, get hit by a bus, the business will operate tomorrow. So those are bold moves, because when you're looking to invest in a company and you're thinking there's a risk that I have as a business, that this company relies on one person. So if this person is the key man, if they're outside, the operations are almost, to zero. And that is a risk. How are you solutioning for it? Are you building a stronger team around you that is going to allow for the continuous operation of the business? And just by the way, here you should be thinking about how you're building succession planning as well. How are you building the succession planning? Whether it could be one, you are just reaching a certain age where you think it will be appropriate to get other people to take the business forward. You've been in the business for so long that you are unable to see the gaps. So you need people to come in. You need to find fund managers that are going to come in. You need to find operations managers. You're going to find different sets of skills that are going to come and allow for the business to continue while you're managing the risk, as somebody, so that the succession, the continuous, the feasibility, the viability of this business is not in question. And I hope at this point, some of you guys have also, if you are a key man in your business, have taken insurance against yourself. By the way, that's also an ask from investors. All the other investors, doesn't matter whether it's all, Masisizane fund or anyone else. Once the risk of the business continuing relies on somebody, on one specific person, you will be asked. Have we insured you? If I'm to give you a 10 million funding or investment, and you for whatever reason get sick and you can't operate the business for the next 6 months, what do we do? So please, these are the things that are able to demonstrate that you're going an extra mile and you're thinking about this business in a more sustainable way, in future terms. One of the things I also encourage is from a people perspective. And it's a missed opportunity. A lot of us, don't tap into. But just having a set of 3 or 2 people that are your sounding board and are your board of advisors, people with experience, people with networks, people who've been in the space for far long, to know that you can rely on them. When you're speaking to an investor, you're saying, listen, I don't know enough. I don't know everything. And this is why I have this person, I have that person, I have this person that I regularly, I periodically rely on them, and I ask for sounding board on the strategy, on our growth plan, on some of the key decisions that I have to make as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. One of the greatest things that come with somebody that demonstrate that it says they are accountable, they're not afraid to explain themselves. It's not some business where they can imagine something while they're walking or they're driving, and then they make a quick decision on it. It's people that are comfortable to be held accountable, and they are required to explain, and that is a plus when you are able to say to the investor that I'm used to these things. So I don't mind you as an investor coming once in every quarter and asking me what has happened, what decisions have you made in the last 3 months, what operational changes have you made, are we coming, are we going? And that level of attitude, that character, is a really great thing. Some of the things that speaks to the business model is really, do you have a growth plan? Again, here, it's not a business plan, it's a growth plan. So the difference is that you're clear in how this business moves from point A, point B to point C, and what are the things that are going to be required for us to ensure that we are on the upward. We're on the upward. How do we introduce certain elements to allow for us to grow? If we want to improve our yield, what is the plan? Do we, introduce this crop? Do we introduce a different crop? Do we rotate the crops? Do we think we are timing our planting seasons right in order for us to know? Are we adjusting our services, our products in line with the market dynamics to really tap into the growth of our customer base or our customer segments? And those are the things that really signify to me as an investor, to us as investors or as financiers, that these guys, they understand that this business has to move from point A to point B. It can't be stagnant, because if it is stagnant, it's not growing, it's not attractive. And then your internal processes and control measures are important when you can demonstrate that these things are You don't make decisions at a whim. You are not operating for whatever the key. You're not operating without guidelines. You don't have defined processes. You don't simple things. Simple things that are not complicated. That if we're in manufacturing, what is our manufacturing process? So what do people do from the time they come in until they go at the end of the day? How are we measuring whether we're coming or going? So they're having those processes in place, very important, and how we control, the progress and the procedures of how we operate as a business. I mentioned the financial records. These things are important when you're looking at the financial records yourself as a founder, as a business owner. There are certain insights that you must be able to demonstrate to an investor that you're not just a revenue increasing. You are not generating revenue. You are now able to articulate, to explain what has been the growth rate and why that growth rate is like that, and how do you maintain that growth rate. What are the things that you're going to require in order for you to continue to sweat the assets that you have in your balance sheet? How do we ensure we get a better return on the assets? Those are the things that if you can be able to articulate and explain and express, and you don't require necessarily the accountant. There are people who, at this point, there are people when you call them for a conversation now that they've applied for funding. When you ask them about the numbers, they'll say, well, I don't know, I'll have to ask my accountant. Now that's a red flag. I don't know where you are in the country right now, but if you ever uttered that word or that phrase, please, I want you to stop right now today and never ever do it again. Never ever, when you are being asked about the finances, you say, no, I don't know, I'm not sure, because my accountant did the numbers and whatnot. It's a red flag. It's a red flag. So please ever, if you think that that's something that you can say, please, it's a red flag. Never ever. It's a sin. Don't do it. So make sure you understand your finances. And the understanding the finances is not you knowing debit and credit, how you are balancing and doing reconciliations. No, what I'm asking is, do you know what as you operate, you are paying people, you're paying salary, suppliers, you are then getting paid from your customers. If I start asking you about your margins and you can't tell me anything about your margins, it's a problem. I don't need an accountant for you to come and answer for you, right? If I ask you, what is your plan? I see you've got a lot of equipment, a lot of assets, you've got factories and everything else. What is your plan, right, to increase and sweat these assets in order for them to give you, to help you generate more revenue? If you can't answer those things, then it's a red flag. And of course, the last point is really just to emphasize around processes and systems. Do you have contracts in place? This is also a question that a lot of people always, debate and they don't realize that it actually causes, it contributes their inability to raise capital. Because if you say to me you have employees, I say, okay, that's fine. You've got employees. So what I'd like to see is proof that you have these employees. Please send us signed contracts. A copy of signed contracts. Don't have the signed contracts. So how do we know for sure that these guys are employees? But also, my worry is that it means you are non-compliant, because it means you're not paying your skills development levy. You're not paying your UIF. So it means for some people that are in, you're paying them a salary of above, I think, about 8.5 or 9,000. You're not paying your pay as you earn. Now, those are the risks that kind of come up because you do not have those kind of things. And lastly, when you are a business owner and you've got a company, and then you've got yourself as an individual that owns the company, the things that you should already have today is a separation of these two entities: yourself as a business, as a natural person, and then you have the business, the juristic person. This is the easiest things you can do after today, but they are powerful. Where you as the owner, you also have got an employment contract that you have signed with this entity, so that you can separate the risk, right? These are people. I can sue the company, but I can't sue you, right? In some instances. So you have to make sure you have signed that contract. If you haven't signed that contract, please, I'm asking you humbly, make sure that you do that as a matter of agency. This entity, this PTY, must provide you with the employment contract that describes how much you are getting paid, leave you're getting paid, how much bonus you're getting paid, and how you guys calculate bonuses, making sure that you get your, that is compliance. That is the compliance that we're talking about. And then you must also have the shareholder. If you own 100%, there should be a shareholder certificate. Please, the CIPC registration documents, they don't tell us anything about who owns the company. Let me say that again. With your CIPC documentation, doesn't tell us who owns the company. It tells us who the directors are, but it doesn't tell us who the shareholders of the companies are in line with the Companies Act. So I'm urging you today, if you only have the CIPC documentation, please make sure you have your shareholder certificate that is issued that confirms that you own, as a person, own 100% of this company. Right. And on the employment contracts, one of the things that also becomes an issue is, as a bold move, you find that people do not have regularity of paying salaries, which talks to their cash management as well. So people, as they pay salaries, when you look at their details, it doesn't reconcile. So by way of having those contracts and where you are stipulating your salary that the company must pay you, in instances where the company is not able to pay you the salary, you can say that you are not taking the salary, you're not drawing the salary, and therefore, in the books of this company, the company owes you. So there's a loan, there's a money that this company still owes you. So that the day the company starts making money, as the investor, I am not surprised to see you taking 500,000. But after you close the money, you raise the money, and then you say, I may not be running this business for over 2 years, 3 years. I've never taken a salary. This company owes me. Where's the evidence that this company owes you? Where's the evidence? So please make sure that those bold moves are clearly defined. You also know what your key metrics are. Again, if you're on this call and you don't know the top 5 key metrics in your business that you measure on a regular basis, on a recurring basis. So if you get woken up in the middle of the night, what are the 5 key metrics that you're measuring in your business that speak to your business? Not generic metrics. So it could, whatever industry you are in, whatever product you're offering, whatever service you're offering, those are key metrics that you having in place. Those are the things that make your request or your applications, your proposition for funding more attractive. So these are the key components that I've spoken about in summary, making sure that you've got a very clear value proposition that you are you're building out in your business. There's validation, and one of the things that I emphasize as well around how people can improve their chances of raising money is the quality of their execution. Not all the other nice things can be in place, but when you find a team, when you find somebody who gets the job done, against all the other difficulties, they just get the job done. And that for me is a key differentiator against all the other things that people else can do. But when you find somebody who really just does the job, just does the quality, these guys are moving, they're aggressive, they're just getting the job. They're just getting the job done. That for me is a key differentiator. You will be asked about what is your competitive differentiation. Some businesses will be in the same industry, will be doing the same thing, will be the same market, very difficult competition, very difficult differentiation from a product perspective. But what you find is that this is a team that you can support or invest in because they are relentless in doing the work, in doing the job. They are obsessed about the customer. They're obsessed about the product. Yes, it's the same product as everybody else is doing, but they will move mountains to make sure that the customer is happy with the quality of the product, with availability of the product, with the reliability that they have on them. And that, for me, those are the key things that you need to think about when we talk about funding readiness. And these are those key components that we kind of want to highlight today. The other one that I'll pick is the use of funds. You find people who come and apply for funding, and then you ask them, what do you want to use this funding for and why? They can't explain very clearly, and how they explain it never translates and it doesn't connect to where they are today, what they're doing today, and what they are going to be doing next. So the alignment of the use of funds with your strategy, your plan, and where you are executing now must connect. Somebody would be asking for 10 million. Right now, it's a company, it's a business that is generating almost, say 250,000 a month or so of revenue, right? They insist that they want 10 million, of a loan to buy whatever equipment. And you say to them, but it doesn't tie, because the company right now, you can't afford the 10 million. Your business can't afford the 10 million. Yes, you want to use it for that, but you can't afford it. So how you optimize the things that you want to do with the money in line with where you are is also important. It says to me that you have thought about it, but like I said, you're not going to get it right first time. It's an iterative process. It's a journey that you need to get right. How you are able to take what you're doing today and then justify why you can get to point B and C through the money that you have. That if I got this equipment, we know for a fact that we can times what we're doing 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 times, because we will work faster, we'll work smoother, it will improve our quality, it will improve our speed, it will improve our competitiveness in the market, because then when the customer is asking for something, we're able to provide it, right? And we're able to build that track record. So I want to highlight those key components, just talking about and emphasizing and driving home the fundamental that you need to have in the business. TD, can I pause here for like 2 minutes to maybe 1 or 2 questions before we delve into the next section? Is that okay?
Hi, yes, Octavius. Yes, there's a couple of questions on the chat box. This is a question from, let me just quickly check here. This question is directed to Ndumiso. They're asking, how is this particular fund different from the other funding that is available in the market? If Ndumiso can just give us a quick answer on that one.
Okay. And while Ndu is jumping on stage, I want to also just share that this is the section we're going to get into where we describe the different funding instruments and options that are available in the market. I'm also demonstrating where Masisizane Fund falls and how it works and differs with the others. So if Ndu is not able to jump on the stage, I'm happy to cover that question in the next section.
Okay, we can do that in the next section. Oh, here he's on. His mic is on.
Okay. I'm here, OP, in CD, but I think it's probably good then if we're going to cover it naturally as sort of part of the presentation. If the question is not adequately answered or addressed, I'm happy to then jump on stage towards the end. Thanks.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. So there was a question here from a lady. I had it now. So for people with an idea to start a business, right? Because I think you did touch on the importance of a business plan. So Uzimbini is asking, would you advise them that they write the business plan by themselves? Or if that is a skill set that they like, would they ideally then go consult with somebody who's a professional? How would they approach the issue on the business plan?
Yeah, great question from the floor. Is it Zimbi? You said it's Zimbi?
Zimbini, yes.
Yeah, Zimbini. Great question, Zimbini. And this is, so there's 2 ways to answer this, right? If you look at the complexity of some business plans, depending on the amount of money that is being asked, you generally end up having to tap into different experts to help you formulate this business plan. So let me explain. So you've got an idea, but this idea is going to require you to get 5-10 million, right? But you are a technician, you just know how to manufacture, how you think you're going to manufacture this product. You don't have any knowledge of how that can be brought together in a financial projection way. So you're going to need somebody to help you with modeling the finances, right? In some instances, you find, because you, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, even when you're starting, because of the different components that are expected of a business, it's so hard and it's unfair that that entrepreneur would know all the other things, including marketing, for example. You know, you would be asked, if you're really just starting out with little to no experience, how are you going to market this thing? Your ability to explain all of that will likely be a bit lower compared to somebody who maybe say they are an experienced entrepreneur. They've done it before, they failed in other businesses, and they're coming up to do this thing. So they'll have some familiarity of what it's going to take for them to build the business. And then you have people who they've been in some sectors, they've been working for like a large corporation, and they are leaving it. And then they want to do that which they were doing in that large corporation, starting out anew. So they've got an experience there. So they can articulate, they can explain how they think they want to do this differently, how they're going to market it differently. So putting all of that together and those nuances, you can refer to somebody to put together the business plan for you, right? You can refer to somebody. But my recommendation is, when you have somebody writing the business plan for you, the risk that you must also take is that they then write it in their own way. So it's very difficult then for you to even own and understand. So if you want to ask somebody to do it for you, my ask is that stay as close as possible for you. And those that are helping you put it together, they should write it in your words. And maybe there's different school of thought. There are people who prefer, nice, bombastic English in the business plan, very complicated languages, and it's not my biggest. And from the different funders that I've seen, including Masisizane fund, those things don't, it's not stuff that really gets them excited. It's as simple as possible, simple language, simple English. What are you guys making? How are you making it? Why do you think this thing is going to work? How are you going to make it work? It doesn't require first grade English. It's just a simple language that is really just going to explain how you guys are. So from the few times I've written business plans for people, is I would insist that I'm not writing this thing for you unless you are sitting across me and explaining it to me, whether it's in isiZulu, in Spedi, in Tsonga, in Xhosa, in whatever language, so that I can write it in your language, because it's going to be your document. And because a business plan is a living document, it's not something you write and then leave it in the desk, in the file somewhere. It's a living thing. So it means you must own it. And some entrepreneurs that are starting out may not have the finesse and the ability to put it all together. So find a way, if you're going to outsource it, to sit across the table with that person and make sure that it is a representation of who you are and what you want to do. The simpler, the better. In terms of the length of it, personally, and I don't know about others, but the longer it is, the more interest I lose, right? Because there are people who have written great business plans in like 5 pages, and you get the message because it's so simplified, it's so clear. And there are people who've written like 55 pages long business plans. It's so complicated, so confusing. You don't know what. It's just a lot of jargon in there, a lot of saying of many things that are meaning nothing. So from a business plan perspective, it really is, what is the product that we're making, guys? Why do we believe that this product that we're making is what the market requires? What is the market saying about this product? What is the gap that we are saying we're seeing? And how are we going to sell this product? And why do we think the way we're going to sell it is going to be, competing in the market? What channels are we using to get this product to the customer? In what ways and other channels does the client get to know about our product or get to know about us, right? Do they get to know about us? Do they find out about us via social media, like via referrals? And that's basically you defining what your marketing strategy is, your sales strategy is. But you see, I didn't use bombastic words. I'm just asking you, if you've got customers, do you know who your customers are? Do you know which, because there's different sets of people in the country with different levels of money in their pockets, with different preferences and tastes and profiles. Do you know who your customer is? Do you have a sense? Can you describe them? And then once you've described them, how are you going to get to them? Do you think the only way to get to them is by being in Discam? Do you understand what the cost of being in this camp is going to be? Or but the only way to get to your customer is just responding to your old classic RFP. You can't, there's no other way. You need to respond to an RFP. So, or you either need to be a vendor on their list. Is that the only way? Do you know how? Who else is doing what you're doing? Do you know who they are doing? That's you doing a competitor analysis. Can you see it? It's you writing it down even on a little piece of paper. Not something that you necessarily need an external person. It's really just the basic knowledge of, is this thing going to be viable? Do you think you can keep selling these things? What are you going to need to produce this thing? Who are we going to need to hire, to bring on board to be able to provide this thing? Whether we need to get experts, whether we need to get people with skills, whether we need to get, whether it's going to be me at home or using some equipment, home-based equipment, or am I going to source some of the things from China, from Vietnam, etc. Those are the things I'm going to do. Okay, cool. Sounds like a great plan. Now, when this all is said and done, do you have money for it? No, I don't have money. That's why I'm applying for this. Okay, so how much of your own investments have you made? No, I've only done sweat capital. Or listen, I've saved a little bit of my money. I've taken some pension. Oh, I don't have any of those things. It's literally, I have none of those things. So, okay, cool. Now, I can now go to people that can provide me with grants. There's a lot of competitions that are asking for ideas that can provide you with your that grant that gives you a kickstart. The next stage, and then gets you to prepare. So there's many ways that you can go about it. But in terms of writing the business plan, my favorite one is any entrepreneur or any person who has never run a business, just start small, write it on a piece of paper, but also use some available resources. There's a ton of online resources right now that you can learn yourself on your phone, anywhere else where you can learn some of these. There's now a lot of AI tools that can write some business plans for you. There's online business plans that you can also take and then modify to your market and to wherever it is. But ultimately it comes back to you. Can you explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you think you're going to do it better than everybody else, and why you think we should care? I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I hope you've gotten a mix of options to that answer. You can get somebody to do it for you, but try and sit closer to them. You can do it yourself through different tools and whatnot. You can enter into some programs and some competitions. You can go to our colleagues at CEDA or NYDA that also provide those kind of services. But my favorite is really you using your own time and your resourcefulness, Mbini, to learn and understand what are the things that I need to put together in the business plan. It's best to find somebody who says, I don't know, but this is my version of what I've tried to do. And then like somebody who said, I don't know how to do these things. I have no idea. Please, somebody help me. Not in this day and age. There's many things that you can do. But if you don't have, for whatever reason, you do not have resources, you don't have airtime, you don't have data to do anything, my ask for you is on a piece of paper with a pencil. You are writing what is it that you want to do? Why do you want to do what you want to do? And why do you think people care? Who else is doing it? How much are you going to buy? You're going to sell it for? How are you going to get it to the customer? Who is even the customer? How do you know this customer wants what you are saying? These are the things that you need to put in place.
So Octavius, on the issue on business plan, I just want to close this business plan topic. I see that a lot of our members have follow-up questions, but this is a question by Prince. He wants to know how often a business plan must be revised. So is this a once-off document initially, or do you need to continuously revise it and improve it? If you can just give a short, sweet answer on that so we can move on with your presentation.
Do it every quarter. Short answer, do it every quarter. Every quarter you have to do a review. Every quarter you have to do a review on all aspects of your business, finances, people, operations, and then rejig what that business plan looks like. Your projections change every quarter. It's as simple as that. Because we are talking as small businesses, it's easier to do it every quarter. The bigger you become, the longer, more people you become, and then as you grow, it's a practice that you have almost every day, every week, where you do the reviews and monthly check-ins and kind of adjusting. But the smaller we are, we don't have a lot of resources. Do it every quarter. Cool. Can we finish up the last part? I'm just looking at the time now. Can we finish up the last part?
You may proceed. You may proceed. Yes, you may proceed.
Perfect. Now, there's people who don't know that there's different types of monies. People say, I want funding, I'm looking for funding, I'm applying for funding. You ask them, what type of funding are you looking for? No, anything right now. What do you mean anything? It can't be anything. It can't be anything, because there's different types of funding instruments that are available that come with different conditions, expectations, pressures, and legalities there. So you've got to know what those things are. And here I'm going to share what those are, what are the pros and cons, and who are the people that typically would provide those funding instruments, so that you are now empowered in the next round of your funding applications or recommendations. You can decide, do I want funding from this kind of a person, or do I want funding from that kind of a person? That's also very, very important. So you've got grants, which most people tend to think they're free, but it's really not free money. Grants are great because you don't have to repay anything. And then you've got debt, which most of the time, I think in South Africa and the continent, is probably 80% of the funding that's available. It's in the form of debt. Here, there's a fixed certain expectations of repayments. There's a certain return that we want from this instrument. It can be short, it can be long term, and I'll go into details in terms of what those things are. And then there's equity. This is where you are giving away or parting way with a portion of your business. Remember earlier I said you need to have a shareholder certificate, a shareholder agreement. So you can't come to an investor and you are offering a 10% of your equity, but we have no record of who has the 100% of this business. And all they're showing us is a CIPC document. It can't be. We need a share certificate, right? But also people here don't know. You ask them, are you comfortable for an equity? Yes, I am. So, okay, I'm going to give you 2 million for 10%. Are you comfortable? And then it becomes a very complicated conversation, because people also aren't generally, and they generally don't understand what those things are. How do you then have such conversations? How do I know my 10% is 10% for 2 million is fair or not? If this person wants to give me, $50,000 for a 5%, is that good or is that bad? How do I work around that? And those are the things that I want to highlight today, so that you don't make the mistakes. There are public entrepreneurs. I think that we know of a few entrepreneurs that make such mistakes, where you are early in the business, and then because you don't know better, you offer a 200,000. You say, yeah, 200,000 sounds like a great idea. I'll give you half of the business, and then 2 years later, you realize, my God, I made the biggest mistake of my life. You either you overestimated or underestimated. This is a terrible mistake. You also now are married to this person. You can't get rid of them that easily, because it's a marriage now. So there's very many complicated things that you have to undergo in order to untangle yourself in there. But all in all, equity, because here there's no expectation of repayments. The expectation of the return on the investment, because of the risk that we are taking, should be higher. Here, the pressure is higher. If you think when you've received a loan, the pressure is intense. There, the pressure is 10 times more intense, because there you're taking a risk. You can typically come in with an idea, and then you get an equity investment there. But we'll get into the details. And then there are your hybrids, where it's more your combination of debt and equity, which becomes your mezzanine finance. Sometimes you can get a debt and a grant, where an investor will say, I'll give you 80% of this money as a loan, but you know what? I'll reduce the cost of your capital, or how much you must repay me by converting the 20% into a grant. But this 20% of the grant, I'm not going to send it into your bank account. I'm going to hire Masisizane to come and help you with marketing and sales strategy, because that's what I think you need. So I'm going to pay her on your behalf. She's going to help you, but you're going to pay me back the 80%, the 20%. It's on me. I want you to have this expert come and help you. So we'll get into the details. And then the grants, let's start there. With the grants, like I said, very nice. People tend to think it's free because I'm not paying back anything. There's no fee, there are no interest rates, nothing else. So good to help you with kickstarting your business. You're not diluting any equity, so you continue to own your 100%. The only problem with it is that because there's not many of these, and that the fact that there's no repayments and there's no cost attached to this in terms of monetary requirements or returns, the queue to apply for them is so long, and it takes so much effort to really go through the application process. You could go up in an application, you can be in an application process for almost 6, 7, 8 months. By the time you get approved, the things that you applied for, why you were applying, that whole thing has already changed. Now you are left with, okay guys, now I don't know why I even wanted this money in the first place last time. So please remind me, we are being approved for why, so that's the problem with grants. It comes with a lot of reporting. With this one, you have to constantly be providing impact stats, reporting how you're doing. Because again, think about it. If this is the money that I've given you, if you invested in your business, I'm not expecting you to return it. I'm not expecting you to pay any fee on it. The least that you can do for us is to, report. But the problem is that when you're a small business, the time to report is so little. It's very little to really put time to, complete reports and then send them out every month or every quarter. There tends to be a very stringent requirements here. You have to be operating for a certain period of time. You have to have a certain type of a team. You have to have certain things in place. So there tends to be very, 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 very difficult in terms of requirements. And then even in how you can use the money, you get limited. The different investors that typically pay in the space, from your DFIs, you have our favorite colleagues at CIFA, and then you've got also, GP, a lot of provincial economic development agencies also provide these. In some way, a lot of DFIs include it as part of their grant offering, but some do provide a pure grant under exceptional circumstances. And then you've got your impact funders who, typically look for businesses that are very early stage in rural areas to really drive that that access and really help businesses contribute to economic development. So you find that a lot of international NGOs come in there to provide such grants, and then there's some corporate ESG funds that are also very big. Here, my ask and or my tip for you is try and make sure you align with the sector that you are in to increase your chances of really meeting the investment mandate, which really talks to the requirements. So most funds will not fund you if you are not in the space that they are in, because again, it's limited funding. There's a lot of people at the gate with a long queue. So you have to adhere to such requirements. And then in terms of debt, you've got firstly your short-term loans where you get your overdrafts, your invoice discounting, and then your purchase order funding. Here you have access to quick cash, a little bit of flexibility in there. It's very great to help you build your credit profile. The only disadvantage with them is that once you've secured it, yes, they're quick. Once you've secured it, they also want you to start repaying almost immediately. And then you have to have this short repayment terms that increase the cost. It tends to be a little bit higher. The fees tend to be a little bit higher. Interest rates tends to be a little bit higher, and therefore puts you in the back foot from a cash flow. So you got the money, but almost a month later, immediately you need to start paying back. So cash flow wise, it then starts creating some issues, and that's why a lot of SMEs have had a lot of default on some of these. Funding opportunities. on the purchase order funding, a lot of the non-banking institutions. So these guys are your, they sit in the middle of either your, in the middle of the pyramid of your commercial banks, your DFIs, and your microfinance institutions. So they sit right in the middle, where they are saying your DFIs are too big to work with SMEs, so give us some of the money, we will manage it for you, and then they manage it for you. The corporate ESG funds as well, they give these guys money and say, you manage it for us to, you go look for SMEs that you want to invest in, you invested in on our behalf, right? So what they would typically do, especially at that level, on your purchase order funding, they would then go into a relationship with whoever is providing you with your purchase order, so that they can do a seamless kind of integration for when you pay. Because you give me a purchase order, I give you the money based on this purchase order. So when your purchase order get paid as a portion of it, that then comes to me. So I'm giving you money that would have taken you another 30-day payment or 60 days. So, but I'm giving you today immediately, and then I only get paid later. But you have your cash today, then you're able to operate and execute on your purchase order funding. Commercial banks, they do it. On the invoice discounting, what a lot of SMEs have also done in the past is they will get a lot of invoices from big, corporates or big clients, and once it gets to a certain cap, let's say 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million of invoices where the payment term is almost like 60 days. So it's a lot longer. So what they would typically do is approach a bank and say, we want to seed these invoices. So we're going to sell our invoices to you. You give us the money, of course, at a minus certain percentage. It's better we have the money today than we have to wait for another 6 months. And then you, as a bank, because you've got more money, you can wait, and then those guys can pay you directly later on. So you can seed literally your invoices. So those are some of the short-term solutions that you have available to you. And then there's long-term solutions where, it's a 3-year, 5-year loans where you want an asset, you want to refinance your business, you want to finance a certain growth opportunities in your business, but you need a little bit more money for your business. So Masisizane Fund would also be one of the companies that then provide you with such. So one of the things that happen is that you have your some of the suppliers that are giving you contracts, and then when they're giving you contracts, they also ask you for some of the financiers that can work with you for that long term to execute some of these contracts. So it also gives you an opportunity to then go and fund and finance this contract. It tends to have a bit lower interest rates, fixed repayments. Most people tend to be in breach of this, because, and I want to pause here, because this instrument is probably a lot more popular and a lot more instrument that a lot of SMEs always want, and they think it's something that is, of course, going to help them. Yes, because it's 3-year, 4-year, and whatnot. But the complexity and the amount of work that you need to do to prepare for this, I can't overemphasize. Because if it's a 3-year loan that you want, a 5-year loan, and I'm asking you, do you think you can meet the obligations to repay for that long period of time without having issues? So before you sign that loan agreement into this 3-year, 5-year, ask yourself, because you're committing to a long term, so you have to be comfortable with working with an investor, with a financier like that, right? Making sure that you're not in breach, making sure that you have got the right level of maturity to engage and work with them, and that you meet your obligations. The only disadvantage with this is that you need collateral, you need security. Most SMEs don't have security. In the past, some SMEs that we have worked with would cede their insurances, their life insurances, the shares that they have in some companies, from having worked in corporate before. So they will cede all of that. So your life policy is worth X, Y, and Z, and then to mitigate against the risk, we will ensure, we will kind of, say in cases where we need to then, you are now in breach and we have to get our money back because of the security that we took. We're able to take all of that money from your other insurers that you may have, or your other asset managers that you have. It's the biggest issue. Not everybody else will have the right level of collateral. So the way you should think about it is, if you're asking for 2 million, always think about what we call is risk cover. Do you have 4 million? Usually most lenders or most financiers would want 2 times the cover. So if you're looking for 5 million, they will want a 10 million cover. If you want 1 million, they'll want 2 million cover. So the collateral that you have, is it worth that much? So what you can help yourself in the process is to make sure that you understand those. Sidi, did you have any?
Yes. So OP, oh my word, I think this is not enough. We did not allocate enough time. I think we're probably going to have a second session. I'm just mindful of time because there's a lot of questions flying in about, and we are running out of time. So if you
can I do 2 minutes?
Yes, summarize that quickly for me so we can jump into the question and answers. Perfect.
And then there's equity here, no payments, like I said, but the important thing to really drive home here is the fact that you're going to give away certain, ownership of your company. So you're going to dilute. So you have 100%. Now you have somebody coming into the fore, and then you are no longer 100%. You're 80%, 60%, whatever it is. So keep that in mind next time you are looking for that person to finance or come in. And then the hybrids here, you don't lose a bit about more for your business. The benefits here also are very good from a tax perspective. It's still almost similar to your long-term loan, because the repayments are still fixed, but you tend to have people who provide you with a lot of strategic support. The danger is really just the complexity. Really, it tends to be a little bit too complex to really structure and put it together. So kind of keep that at the back of your mind. Then quickly, these are some of the things that typically you get asked about. I want to emphasize the fact that you need to have your annual financial statements at all times. Your last financial year, make sure you have those. Make sure if you are in the current financial year, your management accounts are up to date. This I won't bore you with. Quick checklists. Again, business plan must be in place, must be very clear. Your pitch deck, if it's a pitch deck, it must be realistic. It must be realistic. Please have your financial records in place. Your projections must make sense. Your cash flow must also be very clearly defined for the next coming period. Make sure all your legal documents are in place. You must have a data room. You must store them somewhere. Okay, very quick file. Make sure you can clear your credit history. Assess your collateral. Like I said, if you've got 2 million, check if you've got 4 million of it in place. Again, how you want to use the money, super important. Whether the market is something that can demonstrate to us whether this business can still work, that's something you also need to check. And then lastly, how you tell your story really it's super critical for me. But even when you are looking for these investors, the best investor is really still the customer. So colleagues, thank you so much. That 50 minutes wasn't enough to cover this. This is generally a full day conversation, by the way. So thanks so much, Sidi.
Okay, so perfect. We're going to jump into the questions. My plea is for the speakers to keep it short and sweet and to the point. There's a lot of questions flying in, and I'd like us to address them, or at least address 50% of the questions. The first question from Die Muhlame. What does preparedness for a discussion with the investor look like? So, and how do you go about sourcing those investors if you're looking to expand? Short and sweet.
The preparedness, do a due diligence of that on that investor. So read about who they are, what their investment mandate is, what do they invest in, what do they look for? Look for the people that they've already invested in. Call them, ask them, how is this investor? How do they make the decisions? How quickly can they make the decisions? For those that they've invested in, ask them, what is it? How is it to work with them? So what is the investor relation with them? Just how you prepare for them. Make sure your storyline is well defined. What is the second question?
That's it. How do you
How do
go
you?
about sourcing those investors? Because you did mention a lot about finding the right sort of investor. How do you go about sourcing that for
Yeah,
your
so I mean,
business?
yeah, so I think that it really starts with you. What you are trying to build, why you think what you're building is interesting enough, and then looking at the different investors in the market that fit, what you're doing. So a lot of investors would not even look at you if you don't fit in their mandate. So look at, you want a loan. Now that we've gone through this masterclass, you can decide yourself. Okay, I think I want a long-term loan. Okay, great, cool. But you are in what sector? Then you look at I mean, again, we are happy to share some resources of the list of all different investors, and I'll send to the team the spreadsheets. But some of the other resources, I think some people like some companies like Zivoli, they've got a bunch of reports that they put of different investors that you can source by looking at the investment mandate and then matching them, and then making sure that by the time you knock on their door, you're not asking for somebody that is way outside of your league.
Okay, perfect. This is also addressed to you, OP. Does profitability form part of funding readiness? Can you be funded pre-profitability?
Yes, you can. You can be funded pre-profitability. In some instances, what gets to be looked at, remember, it's profitability, it's bottom line. So what tends to be looked at is your ability to generate cash. So is it a cash generating company, business, if you are looking for a loan? So if you are trying to look for a loan, is it a cash generating business? So that's the first ask you must provide yourself. So in your assessment, you need to do a simple calculation of, if you're looking for a certain amount of loan, does your cash generation have enough money to pay for that repayment every month? And there's a lot of tools that you can use, but I always encourage for entrepreneurs to have a loan amortization sheet where you can look at an investor, you put how much money you want, how much risk how much interest rate you think they offer, and then how long do you think you can pay for, and then see how much money you need to pay every month. A 3.5 million loan will probably require you to pay, over a period of 3 to 5 years, somewhere around 47,000. Now, does your business generate cash to afford it, 47,000? If it does, yes. Doesn't matter about, doesn't really talk to the profitability, it talks to your cash flow. The second part is there are some, some investors that don't also look at profitability. You can be a loss-making company, but then they will say, no, also, I don't think you can afford debt. So let's consider equity where you don't have to repay, right? So there's those investors that can say, yeah, you're not generating enough cash to be able to afford the loan that you're asking for. So you either reduce the loan, or if you want to keep the loan, we can convert and think about how we can offer an equity offer as opposed to a debt, because that way you don't have to repay.
So this question is directed to Ndumiso. So what sets Masisizane apart from your typical funders?
Sure, thank you, Tsiki. So largely because Masisizane first is a majority BEE funder. So that's the first hurdle you need to cross. If you are not a business that is majority BEE owned, you don't fall within our mandate. And we were very deliberate in terms of setting that as a pre-requirement, because we want to respond and support the parts of our communities in the markets that otherwise get ignored by the mainstream funding sector. So that's the first part. But over and above that, we've been very deliberate to say, we want to target businesses that operate in the townships, that operate in the rural areas, again, for the same reason that they will necessarily be able to access funding in the financial sectors, in the financial centers of the country, which is largely Joburg, Cape Town, and to an extent, Durban. But over and above that, again, we're saying if you're a young person, if you're a woman, if you're a person living with a disability, you are less likely to access funding opportunities than any other demographic in the country. So we have deliberately decided to specialize on those type of entrepreneurs. There was another question around, it was more a statement leading to a question around at startup, people that do with the tea lady, the accountant, and the CEO, and they don't come from money. I think that's probably the majority of people in this country, which is why we then say BEE as a start, and those individual groups I highlighted. And I just want to close off by saying that having collateral, which is usually a big exclusionary factor, having your own contribution, which again stops the conversation at that point. If you don't have it, those things are not disqualifiers for us to have a conversation as Masisizane Fund. Hopefully that covers the question. Now, back to you, Tsidi.
Thank you for that. Perfect. Thank you for that. A last question, Opie. Maybe let me take 2 more questions. Let's try and keep it short and sweet. With all the funding options available, which one is ideal, right? Ideal for a startup or just a recently new entity, so haven't been traded for that long. So with all the options available, which an instrument is ideal for funding or growing the business?
Grants. Short answer, grants. Grants from government, grants from corporate ESD funds, grants through competitions that are out there looking for early stage companies or SMEs that have just recently started. There's many of those that are ongoing, province to province, national. There are those that are happening. If you can get into also another trick is to get through an incubator. If you've just started, go through an incubator. That's another way of accessing some funding. I know a couple of guys that we've listed there on the presentation. Your M Labs, your GPs of the world, your SAB foundations, your Sanlam foundations, they provide all of that, especially if you've just really started, not so long ago. Yeah.
So this is a question from Mukondleteri. Apologies if I mispronounced your name, but they just require a bit of clarity on the life cover issue, why life cover impacts funding for a business, because she's saying, or he's saying, apologies, that it might be 2 different topics, but why is it now intertwined? If you can just clarify that.
Sure. By the way, I see he's tweeting. This is Mkondli. He's from Angular app. By the way, he's just won the App of the Year from MTN. So congratulations, Mkondli. That question is mostly applied when entrepreneurs don't have any other further collateral. So we kind of talk to them to say, what else do you have in your bouquet? Do you have a house? You don't have a house. What else do you have? Do you have a cash invested somewhere? Can we seed all of that? Is it some money somewhere sitting with some insurer that we can consider? That's typically what happens. Is mostly when there isn't anything easily available, like a house like you typically would make available for you as part of collateral. So we just tap into what other financial kind of benefits do you have, or anything that you can collateralize and make it available to cover the risk of you in breach. But again, those things are not things to, just like as you attach your house, it's really up, you are in control. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's these are things that we emphasize, that understand that if you meet your your obligations, your conditions, there's nothing that's really going to happen. That's really something. And when you foresee that you are under pressure in cash flow, it really doesn't stop you from engaging with that lender, with that financier, and say, guys, listen, I'm projecting we're going to have some issues in the next 3 months or so. Can we restructure? Can we renegotiate? Most of the funders that we've listed here, and especially in South Africa, very understanding when it comes to all of that. So it shouldn't be seen as oh no, now I'm going to give away so much of my assets available to them. So that's what kind of gets to be talked about or considered when you do not have your easy access, easy assets that can be attached to some of that loan. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, OP. This is more of a comment from Anonymous. They say the speaker is so knowledgeable. I wish I could download his mind. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I wonder why that specific individual was anonymous. Would have been nice to know who's providing you these beautiful comments. So thank you so much, OP, for this knowledgeable session. You shared a lot of insights. You touched on a lot of key conversations that we should be having. I also like to thank Ndumiso, our CEO, for coming through and also being part of this session for today. We are nearly coming to the end of our session. I would like to hand over to the head of pre-investment, Mr. Thabo Tleza, for our closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Tsidi. to our partners in the industry, co-founders, value-add partners across the different disciplines. Thank you for joining us today. To our guest speaker, OP, thank you for always putting your hand up in shaping this conversation in the SME landscape, and I'm sure the industry is much, much better for it. To our entrepreneurs, those that have jumped and those that are still on the fence, thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. I'm hoping that there's one or two nuggets that you have taken from this presentation that you're able to apply into your businesses. So if I look at the presentation broadly, which will be shared with all the attendees, there are two slides which I'll implore everyone to go back to. There's one basic slide which said, what are some of the things that we definitely need to have in place that us as financiers, we look at, make sure that over the weekend you have a look at that. And the second one is the funding instrument. What funding instrument do I need at what stage of my business, right? Secondly, I think OP has demonstrated that funding readiness remains a major stumbling block in capital raising, in all our capital raising journey, right? As a funder who in itself does not provide funding readiness as a standalone solution, it will have been amiss of us as a player in the industry not to play back some of the challenges and the experiences that we see as we continue to assess applications. So this is one of the first installment of the many masterclasses that as a Masisizane fund will be going through. And I think judging from the questions and the comments on the chat, there's definitely a need then to unpack even further this funding instruments discussion, right? And the linkage between you as an entrepreneur, how you conduct yourself in your own credit profile and how you conduct yourself on the business element, and what are some of the things that needs to be in place before you approach funders, and how do you assess what instruments do I need to look at what stage of the business. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, thank you very much for joining us this morning. The team will be sharing the presentation today. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much. Sidi, over to you.
Thank you, Thabo. There's a lot of questions we couldn't attend to, but please do use the hashtag Masisizane Masterclass to continue the conversation online. We will readily be able to respond to any of the questions. Even OP, I would encourage OP to please kindly respond to that conversation that will be happening online. Please feel free if you want to know anything more about Masisizane. We are available on social media, on all our social media platforms. We are available on Masisizane Fund website as well. So reach out at any of those touch points if you want to get a hold of us. But thank you so much. I think, I took 1 minute of your time, but thank you so much for availing yourself for today's session. Thank you.